Okay, so I'm calling us to order at 6:02. Okay, and we are all here. Okay, so 6:02, but because we are Zooming, we need to announce our presence. Okay,
Being present.
Christine
Alan
McKee,
present.
Alan present, yeah. Christine said yes, yes.
Yeah.
Stephen
Gloria,
Farrell present.
okay, Gloria, okay, Jim, okay.
Jim
Oh, and
present.
you're here too, and Dave, you're here on the phone, correct?
There you go.
Yeah,
We did.
I did announce it. I don't care with me.
Well, we saw the vibrations, Judder. You knew it was you. Okay. All right. I apologize. I literally ran out of time to get the minutes circulated to you. So we are going to table the minutes of March 12th, the first item on the agenda. If I have time, I will get them to you in a few days, just so you've got them. Public comment? There being none, I don't think. No, there's nobody here. Okay. So now, all right. So, Alan, if you like, here is a general note from the discussion document, so you don't have to fret it. So overall, GP has spent a lot of time since the March Rauscher Farm Management Subcommittee on matters that should have been straightforward and weren't. So the Conservation Commission was very helpful at its March meeting about moving projects forward. And so the discussion document is sort of going to talk, about the Permanent Building Committee and the ADA Pasture Clamshell Pond, and also to bring you up to date with almost the end of the Forest Stewardship Plan. Okay, so looking at our first agenda item, though. All right, so guess what? It'll soon be time to start cutting grass again, won't it? Oh, how lovely, how lovely. So there's obviously no mowing right now, but we are going to be moving into it. And we do have, thanks to Christine, we have 2 no mow signs that are now stored in the barn. So, and we had talked last time about the making paths around tick-free paths. So we will cut around picnic tables. So we should strategically place. So what I'm suggesting is that type of thing we can, when we plan for our April 26th volunteer day, we can be very specific about where those tables are and where we're going to cut around them. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so we would of course cut in front of the big barn with all the signs so that people are not going to get attacked by ticks there too. So we are saving, hopefully. I don't know if you guys have anything to report in terms of equipment and stuff.
Yeah, let me say, I'm just looking at my calendar just a second here right now. So the what do we call it? The Give Nature a Hand Day is the 26th. So we have 2 weeks between now and then. So yeah, so Dave and I agreed at the last meeting to get together sometime to do a preliminary with spray paint marking vines to cut and that kind of stuff in that forest area. So we need to schedule a day for that. So Dave and I need to confer on that. I'd say from middle of next week through the following week to pick a day for that. I'm going to need a couple of days because I also have to get batteries back in cameras. So I'm thinking like one day up on that forest side, another day for me down the other side, just to get cameras updated and moved and that kind of stuff. And then also we have the big mower, the DR mower still has a broken cable that we need to replace. And I was thinking that, and also, by the way, Dave and I, we scheduled a day, anybody else wants to come along in that would be great too. I mean, just to go out and identify things for that work day for people to do big vines to cut and buckthorn that can be cut and uprooted, those types of things that we can probably spray paint with bright red paint so we can find them on the work day. And the other thing is the big mower, the DR mower still has a broken cable. I have a replacement cable in the barn. I think I replaced that cable once before. I sort of vaguely remember how to do it. It's just a little tricky because it's underneath. And I'm suggesting that Alan, you and I do it together because I don't think you've ever done one of those.
I have not, no.
Okay, I don't know, Ray's done a few. I think Dean, I think you've done cables on one machine or the other. I think I remember Dave and I basically taken the other machine in reverse all the way down from the hilltop years, a few years ago, which seems to happen from time to time for all of us. So anyway, so I'm thinking Alan and I, we could schedule a day to do that. Maybe the same day I'm going up to change some of the camera batteries, so you and I can compare schedules, for that.
Okay.
And it's again, one of those things that should be an hour's job, but as we know, an hour's job never turns out to be an hour's job, so,
Yeah. Okay, so shall we, can we talk offline? Do you want to do
Yeah,
that?
why don't you do it
As
by
far as the
email?
as far as the schedule? Okay,
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
compare calendars and, whatever else we're
All
doing to
right.
pick a time to do that.
that sounds good.
Okay.
I was down, just really quickly, I took a walk Saturday afternoon, and as I was out, headed toward the big grassland, I remembered, Jim, your email about the bird houses, turning in the wind, and you had a suggestion for how they should face. So I turned a couple of them manually. I checked all of them there. I think I had said there were 6. There are actually 8 bird houses that I can find out there. And
Yeah, okay.
I turned them all, the ones that needed turning, so the hole is toward the woods or toward the
Yeah.
trees. And I didn't see any activity of nest building, except at one that's by a little brook. It's like the 7th one, I think, if you go clockwise, for the birdhouses. And there were lots of birds in that area. I think they liked the water from the brook. And I did see a tufted titmouse land on the perch and fly away as quickly as it had landed. So maybe it was exploring. I'm not really sure.
Could be. Good. And as far as facing the woods, I remember that was back when the Boy Scouts put them up as a Eagle Scout project. And the advice that they had for research was that the boxes should be facing to the woods if possible. If they do rotate in the wind, so be it. I think the birds will still, go there. But I just think the idea of them facing the woods is from somebody's advice. I assume
We
because
I think it makes
researched it.
sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it makes complete
We-
sense.
Yeah.
We looked it up for guidelines to give them.
Yeah,
And it's, yes, they don't want to look out at a big open space. They want to,
And I'm sure they
they
want
want
to
to be able to
escape
look out and
from
know
the-
they can escape into that,
Yeah, yeah,
into the
yeah.
wood if needed.
right. So the
So-
next
And I will
time
tell you that, sorry,
oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead, Dave.
Go, Dave.
I was just sorry about that. I was just gonna say, actually today I saw, I think 3 eastern bluebirds in my yard, so they're certainly around. I've seen a
Good.
lot of them lately,
Nice.
so
Oh, okay.
they're looking for Fondo, so.
Yeah, they've been
Yeah.
floating around my feeder as well, very blue.
Yeah, and I did see one on that day. I took the walk, right
So the
at the edge of the
chances are,
grassland.
the chances are we might have some actual eastern bluebird activity in the boxes as well as everybody else freeloading.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be a competition between them and the tree swallows most year to see who gets there first. So.
Right. And sometimes, I don't know if you saw it when you cleaned out the boxes this time, Alan, you will see a sequential different nests on top of each other,
Mhm.
obviously from different birds, because the way the nests are built, there's some very distinctive features.
Mm.
So, there's people who will move in if they get a chance. All right, but that's good. Okay. All right, so thank you for that. The update, I scribbled some notes. And we have a team efforts, different teams to set up for the 26th. Moving on from that, in the discussion document, I did have an email exchange with Brian Farrago because I went up the very beginning of April when there was no porta potty. So I gave it a few days and there was still no porta potty. So I
It was dropped off
followed up.
today, Gloria.
It
Oh,
is?
good, okay.
Great. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dave.
there. Yeah. Yep.
Now, is it still Pleasant View, Dave?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so he did actually obviously make the phone call, presumably first thing this morning after I responded. We did have an exchange. It was not on his list, so we have determined that yes, definitely he will order one for Rauscher Farm. Okay, thanks for the update, Dave.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
we have a porta potty there. Okay. And now I need tomorrow to contact Kevin Bartlett, the DPW director, supervisor, I'm not sure what his title is anymore, about flushing out the water system in the farmhouse. It's actually Sund who does it. I have, because he was shown how to do it by Chris McGowan before Chris left the town's employ. So it's when I email Kevin, who I have to ask if he will reply to the email, and if he doesn't, then I turn up on the doorstep. But he's very obliging once I can actually get his attention. So we need water, right? And we need it before April the 26th. Yep.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. 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 Moving along here. Oh no, we're not on the. Where's the? It's further down on the agenda. Okay. Okay. So the habitat, the land management, climate resiliency on the agenda. So I did talk with, again, David Cowell at the last Conservation Commission, and he's all very jolly about doing it. And so we're just going to try and find either a Saturday or Sunday, him and me up there to walk the wetlands and him to make the notes and tell us, say what's going on. I think I might try and record it because I'm not sure I don't think Dave is going to, he's checking everything out for us. He's going to point things out, but I'm not sure, he's not going to write a great document, I don't think. But I will supply him with the old wetlands plan, from way back when the property was purchased. So that is, yes, it's definitely on his radar. So that is good. Okay, now we get to the forest stewardship plan. Well, this has been an interesting couple of weeks here. So after the Zoom, you guys reviewed, right? Sent me stuff back. Then Jim and I did a Zoom review with Rye Patton. At that point, there was really hardly anything to actually change. I had asked for the alders that have sprung up down in the big pasture because that is counted as a shrub, and we don't have technically any, or if any, shrub diversity on Rauscher Farm. So the alders, which won't grow very high, they are classified as a shrub apparently. So they stay. We knew they stayed. So I asked him to put that in the plan some time ago, which it wasn't in the draft. So all he had to do was add that sentence. I think it's stand for. Well, in the meantime,
The grassland for everybody's reference, so whatever the stand is called, down in that wet end of the grassland, you have all those
at the
alders
back,
that are sprung up.
at the back of the loose strife,
Correct,
of-
yes.
sort of the fence,
Mm.
So, so really, all that had to happen, and I sent him. Also, I sent him. I had to fill in the goals things that are taken from the Rauscher Farm management, the original management plan, but Justin is saying also about climate adaptability. Now, that page has to be signed by the town, those 2 pages, because they are, and there also has to be a landowner's signature at the beginning and at the very end. So I had to set this up to make sure that I could get those signatures from the town, given. So what happened at the Conservation Commission is that Sean Kerrigan, who is a member of the select board and is pinch hitting at the moment for the Conscom so that they always have a quorum. And I'll tell you about that. And there's a new employee now too. So Sean very graciously said he would make sure if I sent him all the materials today, by tonight, it'll now be tomorrow, he would make sure that they were circulated in the select board members' packages for the select board meeting next Wednesday, okay, a week from today. And that Sean would make sure that Rauscher Farm was on the agenda. Normally this all passes through Mike Ward, but Sean said no, he would make sure that both the information was sent out ahead of time and Rauscher Farm was on the select board's agenda. So what that means is that they will have electronic copies. I will also have hard copies of those pages in case they want to sign, with the pen, which then can be scanned back into the document. And I can then scan to Ryan, he can then scan it, put it back in the document. Okay. So, I mean, again, making sure all this happens on time. So after the feedback that we gave him, I gave him 8 days to send me the final, which was so that I had a couple of days just to read it right before I sent it to Sean today. And I also sent him the goals and objectives of the property, so for him to insert. Well, the deadline for him getting back to me with the final passed. It was meant to be last Friday. So on Saturday morning, before I left to have a lovely, lovely party with 50,000 new friends in Boston, I again emailed the message I had sent, 8 days before, and I resent. Okay, and that was it. So, okay, so that was fine. So that was Saturday. So he did respond on Monday, and so said, here it is, final. But it wasn't, because the materials I'd sent for the goals and objectives had not, it was still just blank. So I had to send those again. And there were some other things, a couple of other things, right? So this is all Monday. And then he says, there's also 2 documents that I have to also get signatures on. These are, and I have them, they were sent to me by Mike Downey. They are for the payment situation. And I was just going to scan these tonight and send these as separate. There are 2 of them. One is for the $3,500 for the plan and the $720, 2 different documents for the educational stuff. Now but now I realize when looking at these, there is a possibility that he could be paid directly via the DCR, and we wouldn't have to do the DCR to the town and deal with all of that, So I'm going to just talk to Diane Magliosi and say, is it acceptable, because there's a space for it here, for the town to agree for the reimbursement to be made directly from the DCR to the forester, because that would just make, otherwise
Yes, cut out a middleman.
it cuts out having to get Conservation Commission to sign off fully on it in their next meeting. And then there has to be a whole procedure of, it goes to Diane, the accountant, and then it doesn't, and bills are only paid every 2. Christine knows exactly what I'm talking about with this whole process. So I am, rather than sending to Sean tonight, which I could do, I just want to check with Diane Magliosi that the town will agree to this, because it would make life so much easier. So long and short is, oh yes, and then, so backwards and forwards with him. So then also he said that he was including 2 hours of his time coming to Rauscher Farm on the educational part, right, of that $720. So I dug out, again, this has all been happening since the last couple of days. So I dug out the scope of work that we had for it and that I had sent him months ago, right? This document here, which you have copies of somewhere in your files. And it says, 3,500 to actually do the plan, right? And then part two is the climate plan technical assistance, the $720. So he is claiming the initial site visit on September the 4th. Under that, Ryan said he's going to submit, two of his hours. Then the public presentation was a wash. Remember all of that, blah, blah, gone. But the third one is recommendations on how to implement the plan's next steps. So I have today requested that he will write a list of the possible resources for implementation, because he said, oh, I know this and I can help, and blah, blah. I've asked him to write a list and then send that to me. I've given him until a week Friday, and also to have a Zoom conversation with me and anyone else. I'll tell you all when it is, to go over that list, because that is on the scope of work, which he obviously has forgotten all about the scope of work, which seems to be a little bit how he operates these matters. So that's where it is. In theory, it can all be done and dusted a week Friday, and he will submit it to the DCR, and ideally the town doesn't have to do anything else at that point. Or we have to go through the whole convoluted thing of going to the okay. Got it? Up to date? Any questions on that one?
Thank you.
All right. Right. So now I will go on to I haven't done the electricity in the barn. We had agreed that we'd reach out to National Grid. Just haven't quite had a moment to do that. So we'll make sure that's leftover business from our last meeting. So I need to do that. The historical research on the farmhouses, yes, slightly on the back burner right now because of all these other deadlines. And so now we get to, where do we get to now? Oh, we get to the pollinator meadow. So the pollinator meadow nursery garden is what it actually is. So I'm going to hand over now to Jim and Dean, because I know you've.
And if I could have screen share, I can put up a diagram that
Yes.
Dean just updated yesterday.
Thank you, Dean.
Sharing is not turned on.
It
You
is
need to
now.
Is it? Okay.
Multiple participants. So
Okay,
somewhere
here we go. Wait a minute.
You got it? You should.
We see this?
It's coming.
Yes,
There it is.
yes,
Yep,
yes, yes,
looks
we got
good.
it.
Wow,
Okay,
nice.
good.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Now, having gone over the plant list from last year and this year, and also looking at how we laid out the garden last year, we laid this out, either 1 meter or 2 meter spaces, as shown on the diagram. Some are, bigger than others. But when we laid out that bottom half of the diagram last year, which is where we did what we planted last year,
Yeah.
these plots were laid out with a meter space in between them.
Yeah,
And based on that training we had with Freddie Gillespie and all the rest, we really want to get these closer together so we can get more density of plants and get more plants into the plot over the next several years.
yeah,
So, let's see. So given that these plants on these bottom 2 rows have already been planted, we can't really move those plots entirely. But can you see my cursor as I'm moving it here?
no,
Mm,
No, you can't see my cursor. Okay. Plot 14 on the lower right, the Allegheny monkey
and
flowers.
can you see my cursor?
No,
No, you shouldn't be able
It
to
doesn't
see
really, it
mine.
doesn't look, it doesn't really
Okay.
matter. These
Okay.
plots are numbered. So if you look
Yeah.
in the lower right, plot 14, we planted the monkey flowers last year.
Yep,
When we picked up our original order, they were short, so we only got like 5 or 6. Went back later to get some other plants. They gave us the remainder. So those few that were planted later died because of that huge, dry, hot summer we had. the ones we planted first at the end of the season looked like they were doing okay. We need to weed around them, et cetera, but they looked like
Yeah.
they were healthy. The 2 or 3 that we planted later in the season didn't survive.
We're talking
But-
about
but-
10, number 10, plot 10.
Well, no, I'm going to talk about that too. So plot 14 that we've already planted, right?
Yeah,
Now, if you look at plot 10, we had already planned for this year to plant more monkey flowers in plot 10.
yep,
So I've got on a spreadsheet that I'm not showing, just to not cause too much confusion. I've got the order down for like a dozen more monkey flowers that we can plant in plot 10 and have several left over to replace the dead ones in plot 14 and also to spread them out. So when we're planting the
Yeah.
new ones in plot 14, instead of just being 1 meter, we'll go like a meter and a half, or we'll go like another foot into that space in between. So instead of having like 1 meter between each plot, we'll go for like having maybe 18 inches in between, which still gives us space to get in and water, but it also gives plants that are on the outside to have growing room, et cetera. So if we
Okay.
go back to plot 14 that we planted last year, we need to, replace some of the ones that didn't die. And also of the ones that we did plant, you may want to dig out 1 or 2 and space them out a little bit more into the
Okay.
adjacent space between plot 14 and plot 19.
okay,
Okay. And still looking at what we did last year, if you go over to plot 16 on the lower left, we bought one low bush blueberry that also didn't survive. And looking at Rob Jagier's
On High
list,
Bush, right?
one high bush, I'm sorry, correct. Thank you, Dean. Looking at Rob Jagier's list, we could use low bush. They both have the same characteristics for, when they're in pollination for the, for the pollen for the
okay,
bees. And looking at that space, we could put 3 low bush blueberries into that space, take out the dead, tall bush.
yep, yep,
And with the 3 low bush, they'll also help give us some ground cover. So hopefully as they grow, if we keep things watered, as they spread out, that'll help maintain ground moisture. Because throughout what we're doing, we need to sort of plant things closer together and plant more things. So the plants themselves help sort of shade the ground and maintain moisture. So that's remedial work for last year. And the other thing, as we look at plot 9, up in the second row from the bottom, the prunella, we put 9 plants in there, and as they grew over the summer, they are awfully crowded together.
yep,
So we need to dig up some of those. We can spread those out on either side. We can spread them towards plot 12 or over towards the ledge, because there is enough dirt going between there before we hit the ledge. There's enough
Yep.
dirt to plant in there too. So we can spread those out and give them some more breathing room. So that's
Okay.
remedial work from last year, all right?
right,
And then for this year,
yep,
if you look at those top 2 rows, we
Yep.
already have the 2 Carolina rose plants in 6 and 13. We put those in last year.
yep,
I just talked about the monkey flowers in 10. So
Yep.
instead of buying the 9 that are specified on the chart, we're going to buy like say a dozen, so we can spread out the 9 bigger and put some back into plot 14 where some died last year.
okay,
Then going from the monkey flowers going to the left, Carolina rose is already there. Foxglove beard tongue. Got that down for 2 plants. If you notice down in plot 11, we have hairy beard tongue where there's 12 plants, but apparently when I'm looking at the planting directions on the site for northeast pollinator, whatever the places up in New Hampshire we bought from last year, they say basically like 2-foot spacing. So if we take that and put 2 plants in instead of the 9, we should be good. We can always add more next year if we need to. To the left of there, plot 7, the purple giant hyssop, however you pronounce that, 4 plants. I think we original planned for 9, but again, looking at the recommended spacing, 4 plants. And if we put those toward the corners, they could extend out into adjacent spaces as they grow. Likewise, to the left of that, for number 5, the wild bergamot, which is actually some variation of bee balm. 4 plants. That these are apparently smaller than the large one we have in our own front yard. Above that, number 1 in the upper left, this is our ongoing problem. We can't get that prairie willow. We are on the wait list at Blue Stem Natives in Norwell, which is the only place around that has the prairie willow at all. Nobody else has them. And they only had them when I actually, Alan and I talked to her in person when we were down there last fall. And she said she's trying to grow a few like at her house. And if they come in and if she spots them soon enough, when what do you call those little buds on the willows come out? When they come out, if she sees them soon enough, she can tell which are male and female and label them, which would be nice because technically we need one of each. But right now we can't get any period. So we'll just leave that plot. And if you look way down at the bottom row, plot 18 on the bottom row, those are both for prairie willow. Those are both sitting there empty. And I'm suggesting we just hold those in reserve in the hope that we will get prairie willow sometime before the year is over. And if not, we may want to look for Plan B next year.
Okay.
And the thing is with the prairie willow, it's the only plant on Rob Jagier's list. It's the only plant that's out
No, I
in
know.
April. And all the ones that are out that early on his list are all variations of willow. The thing about the prairie willow is it tolerates drier soil. The other willows want moisture soil. And if you
Okay.
look way down in the lower right, Dean has put in a number 21 that's off outside of the garden with an arrow pointing to the bottom.
Um,
And and I want to
oh, yes.
propose,
Yes.
we can buy a regular pussy willow plant that needs to be in moisture soil. If we did that, we plant it outside of the meadow,
Yeah.
downslope towards the wetland. And also that pussy willow plant actually grows quite big. It'll grow up to like 5 or 6 feet tall and 4 or 5 feet in diameter,
Okay.
at least according to what it says on the site.
Does it
So if
need
we,
male and female?
it doesn't say that it does. It doesn't say one way or the other. And it is the males that have the catkins on them apparently,
Yeah.
which is what we. So it doesn't say anything about those being male and female. And although Rob's notes on the prairie willow, it says you need both. So I suggest if we were to buy one pussy willow plant, plant it outside down where it's wetter year round, though we'd
See how
still
it goes.
keep an eye on it to keep it
Yeah.
watered. And if that thrives, then we do have something first thing in the season, hopefully when our
Okay.
queen bees from out of our queen long-tongued bumblebees come out of their winter nap, right?
Okay.
Who are looking for something to eat bright and early in the season. So that's what we know about willow so far. If we bought one of those, hold the other two plots in the hope that we'll find something. So back on the top row, going to number 2, white turtlehead, again, 4 plants. I've got those on the spreadsheet. Purple flowering raspberry. This again goes back to Blue Stem Natives in Norwell. It's the only place I can find that has them.
Yeah.
And they again have them listed as we're working on it. We'll notify you. My email is on the list to be notified. I've already checked on prairie willow a couple of times last year. I just checked again a week ago. And when I click on it, it tells me I'm already on the wait list. So the wait list is still there. I don't know how many people are waiting ahead of us, so we'll just have to keep checking on them. So the raspberry, again, 2 plants, we're on the wait list. We'll see if we can get them. If not, maybe we'll look for something else next year if we can't find them. Showy goldenrod, we have those from last year. This will be 2 more for this year. So we have 2 right now down in 17. No, down in, where did they go? In 12, we have some.
Well,
Yeah, so we're going to put 2 more in up in number 4, which is what we planned ahead last year. Then number 20, this is in addition. Oh, the other thing I did because we're going to move all these plots closer together. All these ones on the top that we haven't planted yet. We're going to move them closer together so there's only 18-inch spaces, which gives us room for another plot or 2. So in one of those additional plots, we're adding calico aster, 4 plants, which is late season. That's like,
Yeah.
September, October.
Yeah.
And then on in plot 15, spotted St. John's wort. So all of these that I've up here are available. I've got sources for them. Nearly all of them are, if I can find my spreadsheet from, I can't remember, but the place that we went to up in New Hampshire is most of them. A couple of them, there was one we have to order from a place in Vermont, which I can't remember which one it was. And they'll have to ship it to us. Oh, here it is. I got the list right here. Wait a minute. So, wait a minute. So nearly everything is Bagley Pond up in Vermont, except for, again, Prairie Willow, which if we can get it, will come from Blue Stem natives. The spotted St. John's wort, that's the one. The only place I could find that is Northeast pollinator plants in Vermont. They will ship to us, but the free shipping is only for 15 plants or more, and we're only buying 4, and there's not other plants they have that are worth buying from them because we can get them elsewhere. So it'll be like $24 for those plus shipping, whatever the shipping is. But they shipped to us last year and they arrived a day later on our porch. So
So I just have one question though. One of the things that Freddie and Giancarlo said was that we didn't have enough different species.
mhm.
And because, because I was running the winter, so I couldn't do it. But I do have what they had out.
And I have all of that too, and I went through their list.
Yep.
And nearly everything on their list is, I'm trying to think, it's either stuff we already have on our list, or the trick here is looking at the list is what's in season when, what kind of planting environment it needs. And of the plants that they had, I don't have this in front of me. I've got screenshots. I took pictures of
Okay.
all of their plants. And there's only a couple that they even had that are different from what we have.
Well,
There
here's,
was a couple.
yeah, like Joe Pyeweed,
Joe
Very
Pyeweed should be here someplace. Where is
is
it?
it?
That's interesting. Where is Joe Pyeweed?
No, it's not here.
Huh.
It's on the list, though, obviously, on the Rob Jiguer list.
And I
Yeah,
thought it was on my list. Wait a minute. Let me look down because it's supposed to be there this year on our, wait a minute. Spotted Saint one, blah, 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 purple flowering raspberry, wild native. All right, you know what? That was on my meant to be here, but it isn't. So I need to go back and find a source for the Joe Pyeweed. We already have lots of Joe Pyeweed in Rauscher Farm. I don't know what variety they have, but
Yeah.
of the ones that they recommended. And I was looking at all the stuff online last week, and I did find sources, but somehow it didn't make my list. All
Okay.
right, so I will find a source for that, add it to the list, and then I'll talk
Very.
to Dean and we can find a place to slot it
Yeah,
in.
well, I'm
Probably
just going, hang on a second, because I know you two got this down pat, and I don't. I'm just going to read things out from my envelopes, which is what I took,
Okay.
Well, we've got the showy goldenrod, yes, we do. And we've got hairy bird's tongue, yes, we do. Little blue stem, I know we've got that, right?
Little blue stem.
Is there a blue stem somewhere?
I don't think so,
Don't
but
see
there's
it on the
probably,
planting diagram.
what?
I don't see it on the
Yeah,
planting
I'm
diagram.
sorry, I've got so many different documents for
Right,
this
no,
project.
but listen,
And I need to
rather
go
than,
back, just wait a
Yeah.
second, because I have I've got things with notes scribbled all over them here. We'll need to find,
but I can give this to you afterwards, Jim.
I already have it, that's what I'm telling you, I already have it, I've
Okay.
already gone through all of that, and if it's not there, it's probably not because I missed it, it's because there's a reason, and I'm sorry, it's too confusing to do right here on this
Well,
call.
that's what I'm saying. So why don't we agree to this, what we're looking at, and then let's double check. Well, the other thing is we do need to go down and see now what has survived winter.
Just a
Yeah,
note
right.
on the pussy willow, if you're looking for these to self-propagate across Rauscher Farm, it is recommended that you have both a male and female.
Thank you.
Right.
So it's the same issue as
No.
the prairie willow, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I remember when I was going through all the different vendors for this stuff, I was looking at various varieties of Joe Pyeweed last week, and for some reason it didn't make it onto my list, so I have to go back and find that. And the other things that were on, again, I've got so many pages with notes on them here scattered in a
No,
folder.
I know it's
And
little
on
blue.
that, I noted all the things that there were seeds from, that plant-a-thon,
Okay.
whatever you called it.
Yep.
And
The
everything
winter
there was
sow.
on, the winter sow. I can't find that particular list here, right? Oh, wait a minute. It's too confusing. Right now on this call, it's gonna take too long to find.
No,
But
we're not, but
I
we're
did
not, but-
cross-check everything that was there with what's on Rob's list, what's already in our garden, what we already planned to buy in the garden. And there's only one or two things that they had that were likely for one reason or another. There was one that was like an oat grass that I looked at
yeah,
that we could possibly put in, but then looking at it, it grows like 3 feet tall and comes, so it's like, it's one of those things we may want to find a place for it. But
Yeah.
they're also duplicating for pollen and nectar in season, things we already have anyway, too. So it's like, what do we want to, if we
right.
want to put it, where would we put it? Are we going to take something else out to make room for it? Or where's it going to fit, you
Well,
know?
I know. Okay. We got
Or we
great
may want to, or
St.
we may want
John's
to
one.
look at, or we may, those bottom two rows, when they were laid out last year, they all have a full meter space between them.
Yeah,
So we may want to put like maybe a thin strip of something of the same
yeah,
thing in several spaces in there
yeah,
or
that's what
something,
I'm thinking we could do. We have the space to stick some of this stuff in.
But again, I know from Rob's guidance, we basically should have a square meter of any one plant that we're planting. And given that those lower two rows have a meter space in between and we need a little bit of working space, we can't put a full meter in any one of those spaces. But we could put, half a meter in one space and half a meter of the same thing in another
Yeah,
space or
yeah.
something.
Okay, so let's double check it afterwards, but I do need to get down there and actually see, we're assuming things survived.
Yeah.
Okay. So which means a quick visit sooner rather than later?
Yeah, well, again, already I'm gonna have to do at least 2 trips up over the next 2 weeks to take care of the things I've already committed to do
Right.
with equipment and cameras and marking things for the
Right,
work
well, I
party
need to
and
come
so on.
down. Yeah, and I need to do this too. So shall we agree that basically we will follow what Jim and Dean have done on the understanding that we're going to nip and tuck possibly some more in,
And-
when we
and
double,
just-
check against a couple of other lists.
And just
Oh,
for the record, everything that we plan to buy for this year uh, comes up to $725.
Ah.
That includes, though, the prairie willow and the showy and the raspberry that we can't buy yet. So an initial purchase would come to like 600 and something dollars. And those
There was
missing things,
$1,000 in the Rauscher Farm Fund specifically for these plants. One was a grant and one was a
does
donation.
that include what we spent last year? We spent
Well,
five
that's what
hundred
I'm
dollars or so last year, right? So,
I know, that's what I'm saying. I remembered it was about 500, so we've
Yeah.
technically spent half of it.
right.
So we have to just watch that too.
And again, to me, it shouldn't be an issue because this is a priority thing and that's why we have money there for
Yes.
programs and
No, I
maintenance and
agree.
operation
I
of the
agree,
Rauscher
but
Farm.
I agree. But we still have to make the argument to CGCT.
On the other hand, we have to get orders in for plants in time to get on the waiting list so they aren't all gone, so.
Yes, I know. So let us make this a priority to double check that some things didn't fall by the wayside. I mean, the reason things are very vulnerable, as we know, is when it suddenly goes warm and then suddenly goes cold again. When you have that, when the plants all go be-doo-da, and then, whoops, not so fast. But just,
If anyone wants a copy of this, I'd be happy to send it to them.
yes, could you circulate it to everyone?
Sure, I'll send you a PDF too. I noticed there's some rendering differences. I did mine on the Mac, and I noticed there are some rendering differences from the version that Jim has. So I will send it all out to you as a PDF. So
That would be
doesn't matter
smashing.
what
Thank you.
platform you're on.
Yeah.
Do you want
that
to
would-
wait until it's all nipped and tucked?
Sure.
Because I just don't want you to have to do the work twice. Especially if if we're gonna be introducing pieweed or adding a couple other things.
Sure.
May I ask, yes, I think that's true for us. I've got Freddie and Giancarlo wanting some information from me, even if it's not complete, to go into the Bumblebee project that, what Sudbury Valley Trust used to do is now seems to be another group doing. So I've got a couple of days to send them stuff. So, Dean, you're dating your files, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so are you the only one that has this as it now is, or Jim does has it?
Well, Jim has it, and it's a PowerPoint. I'm figuring that I like to work in Visio, but everybody doesn't have that. I
Okay.
figure most people
Well,
have.
I personally am requesting now this not totally completed plan, so I can
Oh,
just
sure.
send it off to,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay.
And
And
sending
then,
that to
we
everybody is
and then we
confusing.
follow Christine's suggestion of then hanging back a week or so to get the full picture, right?
Sure. So
and
I'll send it to you now.
That's great, because they're giving me a deadline of, days away, which I haven't been too busy
Alrighty
trying to
then.
do that. Okay, all right.
Can
Yes, so,
let me speak, so now I found the working copy I had of Rob's list where I've got things in circles and arrows and red pencil and all the rest. And I go back to his spotted Joe pieweed. I've got it noted that it's available at Bagley Pond. So for some reason, I just didn't get that into the spreadsheet and onto the map.
it's here. Spotted, oh no, spotted, no, I see, John's Wart's here. Okay, so it just didn't get the list, and
Yeah.
there is space for it.
I know there is. Yes, there is. Correct. Because even the diagrams you're looking at isn't really true to what's there because the spaces in between those plots shown in the diagram are actually much bigger in real life than they are shown on the diagram because there's a full meter space between each of those plots.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the calico aster was added. I think that was one that was from I think that was one from the winter sow. I'm not sure.
So, okay.
Without going back and checking, again, I have to check multiple places, different lists for different things here.
Very nice, all right. What's Meadow Sweet? Anyway, we'll do this offline. We've got it. We have enough. And we just have to tweak a couple of things. But first make sure that things are still alive. It's very strange that the blueberry bush didn't make it. And it was that drought, I know, but I thought they were really resilient.
Okay, here's the other thing. I did look at White Meadow Sweet. I'm going to look at my list because
Yeah.
that was from the winter sow. And right now, nobody I checked seemed to have it available.
Okay.
So again,
Everybody, I
next
need
year,
to jump off.
yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Bye, Dave.
Good
Okay,
day.
see you,
Thank you,
Dave.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, well, we don't need votes on this. All right, so shall we move on filling this in as we go over the next couple of weeks? We're agreed to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, everyone happy with that?
Happy
Okay,
here.
the invasive species, I'm holding off on the discussion on this at the moment because one of the things that I remembered that we heard from Rye Patton, Jim and I heard, and some of you had made comments about not, should chemical use, be revisited. In that Zoom conversation, he said that there were some herbicides that were not as harmful to the environment. Do you remember this, Jim? And I'm going to ask him for what that list is, and we can look at what those specs say. And would there be any point in doing any spot herbicides? Only in certain areas. So I don't know. So you guys had raised it. I know Dave raised it in his feedback. So I'm saying to at least investigate it. Invasive species control. And I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. I'm just saying we need to get some information. Would that be okay with you? To get from the forester what he was talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's get to let's get to the path to Clamshell Pond. Okay. So it was a somewhat quickly intense meeting of the Permanent Building Committee last night. So what I have shared with you already was, as soon as I got it, I sent you the Haley Ward proposal that amounted to 2 payments, one for 27,000, one for 10,000, and then a whole chunk of things that were not included in the quote, in those prices. A whole section about, well, if we need to do this and do this, like to spend time, whatever. So there's, could be a fairly strong possibility that the total of 37,000 would in fact go up. And then we only have from the town appropriated money, the 144,500 and et cetera. So there is not sufficient budget to do it as is in one go. The other reason, it was a sticker shock to me because in the email I sent and also shared with you this morning, the email I then sent to Chris and Mike Ward this morning as a result of that, I was surprised. I don't have any experience. Maybe it's the going rate, but Haley Ward is this large company that the procurement officer has been turning to over and over again. One of the things I said at the meeting yesterday was why weren't there more quotes? Because state law says anything, 50,000 and et cetera, you have to have 3 quotes, and there was just this one request for a proposal from Haley Ward. I was then told last night, well, no, that's state law. It's not actually apply here because it applies for vertical plans, i.e. buildings and things like that, but not horizontal plans like roads. I'm still not willing to accept, to recommend that the Permanent Building Committee accept this quote, this proposal from Haley Ward, because there is no way the project can be started without having identified other funding. So you'd be paying Haley Ward at least 27,000 to send out RFPs, and then guess what? There's insufficient funding to then cover. So you will see this morning in that email, which we have discussed before, and the Conservation Commission have discussed as well with us, me representing us, that the project could be broken up and done in phases. And so what that email this morning did was say there are these 3 basic entities for the project. One is parking areas, of which, according to the design, there are 2 at the moment. One, in the one by the barn, the one that almost rips off everybody's muffler, right, with that rock. And then the other side where the lean-to, the collapsing lean-to is. So that in the design, that's there. I can resend you the design, everybody. I'll do that. Would that be helpful? As this sort of begins to play out, I will resend you the design. So one is parking areas. The second is the actual pathway itself, which is, to meet ADA specifications, is stone dust, etc. And then the third part is the observation deck that overlooks Clamshell Pond. So again, as you saw in my email to both Mike and Chris this morning, what happened last night was that after this conversation had gone on for some time, and I kept saying, there's no way, we have no idea what this is, costing, etc. Although in my email, I did refer to why I was so adamant last night. So the point being, this is a very difficult time I believe, to try and put something on the town warrant for this June. We still don't know what would be going on the warrant. I can tell you about the guesswork. But that, at the moment, the town budget is extremely tight because of increases in the health insurance for town employees. For one thing, it's one of the reasons. So there's been at these budget joint meetings between the FinCom and the select board, there have been, well, where can you get funding elsewhere for your budget? I've been having done this with the library, right? Okay. So there was also the issue of might some budgets actually be cut. And I don't know where that actually is anymore because I haven't been watching these meetings, but I obviously realized that to turn up and ask for, let's say, which I think is approximately, if the project costs rather than 144, but we go up to, 200, because in December, when I met with this woman who wrote the proposal, Bethany Ordung, when I met with her on the 3rd of December, 2024, I told her then what the budget, what allocated funds there were. And she went, oh, that's not enough. Now, she obviously couldn't tell me more. I said, well, okay, so would going up, going up to, 200, would that? And she didn't contradict me. So based on this informal conversation, and this, of course, if it comes out to something like that, up to 200, that didn't include the 37,000 that's in the Haley Ward proposal that came in yesterday. So that's why I wouldn't, even though they all wanted me to get lost, right, Jim, last night? To be quiet. I wouldn't be quiet, and I wouldn't accept a proposal. And that's why I wrote that email to explain why I wouldn't. I was shocked about it. And unfortunately, last night I was going to compare that proposal from Haley Ward with the proposal, with the contract that the town had drawn up for the OPM to manage the library project, right? And I checked with Marie because she had seen it, and it was 28,000. So I was going to ask a very innocent question about how come a project which will have ultimately millions riding on it, right? And the OPM gets the money once it's agreed because they get all the construction stuff, right? But right now their first phase of payment is 28 grand for a project that is going to be millions, and here's 27,000 for the first part of the Haley Ward for a project that is minuscule by comparison. But I couldn't make that argument because when they put up the library, the OPM contract, which was the agenda item immediately before the Rauscher Farm one, they all said, oh, we haven't had time to look at it, so we're not going to do it now. We're just going to table it and we'll come back to it in another couple of days. So I couldn't use that argument. So I was just left to be stubborn, and stubborn I was. And ultimately, what the chair said was, well, okay, getting pretty irritated with me at this point. Well, okay, well, maybe we can get some engineers to give us some sort of, I said, that's brilliant. And this was like, I said, that would be great. Get some engineers to at least give some sort of ballpark figure. And that's all that stuff that came up this morning in the email I shared with you. Let's begin with a ballpark figure. Let's work from a ballpark figure and then you can tighten it. But at least we would know, okay, break them out into the entities. To do the parking would cost this. To do the stone dust trail would cost this. To do the observation deck will cost this. And then we see how much we can actually start with. And then we can ask for someone to manage the project. So, and the Conservation Commission is in favor of phased project. So this is where we are, everyone. But there is no way that the town, even though the Permanent Building Committee has the authority to get a proposal and accept it, there isn't the money to do the project, so they can't. Because then, you know, they'd have to wait until the money came in, and then that proposal would no doubt change. It's
Can I just
fiduciary
say-
response. Yeah, I mean, we need to be responsible financially for this project. And so that's it. That's where we are, everyone.
Can I just say, the proposal you already have, I can't remember the name of what's her name, gave you the proposal that you just got for the project management and design for the bid documents,
Yes.
which came out to 37,000. I'm suspecting, you go out and get a couple of other quotes. They may not be the same price, but the one that you've already got, their scope of work shouldn't really change significantly from what they've already bid on because they haven't yet been given details of what they would have to write for the bid documents to go out. And all that would change here would be that they would have to write in 3 different phases as part of the bid documents going out. The part that might change is the part that they've put in for project management. And as I recall reading through that, they've put in lots of latitude for time and materials, guesstimate, and I think they've had $10,000 for that, which could be more or less. So that might change, especially if it wasn't all being done at the same time. But the actual creation of the bid document shouldn't be any more work to do it, to write it up for 3 phases than to write it up for one big project. It's just a matter of how they structure
Are
the
you
document.
saying to go back and accept it?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
But I'm simply saying, if you're going to go out and ask for a couple of more proposals, presumably they need to look at maybe changing their proposal if we're changing the specification, but we haven't really done a specification as to how, in other words, the one that they've got, we haven't said one way or another whether this is all going to be done in one thing, or if we wanted to break out their bid into like 3 phases, right? Didn't say one way or the other. When it comes time to write their document, they're going to have to say, well, how do you want it written? That shouldn't change. But on the other hand, if we're going to state that up front, they might want to say, oh, now we have to look at it all over again because it's 3 phases, not 1 phase, which shouldn't change at all. It's just a matter of how you write the same document, in 3 section A, B, and C instead of one big section A, right? So in terms of actually developing and writing the document, it shouldn't be any more work. I'm speaking to somebody who spent years on the other end of proposals. It shouldn't be any more work to create the document. Where the scope of work might change would be on the project management side if it's not all going to be done at one phase.
Okay, I hear that. My other concern is that I met with this person on December the 3rd. I immediately after that, because she asked me what's next steps, and I said, well, it is to contact Mike Ward, the procurement officer. And I sent an email to Mike Ward and CCing her saying, we've met, we've talked, I told her to talk to you, right? It is now April, right? The proposal has arrived in April. And then I know it all slipped through the procurement officer's fingers, and then it was meant to come a month ago and he still hadn't got anything. I don't feel confident that this particular individual is that interested in the project. And this is purely subjective, but I'm just sharing with you, when you talk to someone in December and they don't deliver a proposal until, that was all of December, January, February, March, and we're into April. So it's 4.5 months. Yes, Dean?
So they do big projects.
Oh.
We're talking about Haley Ward now, right?
Yes.
So they do big projects and they're in 48 states.
Yes.
And they've had plenty of work. I think this project is too small for them. That's why they're not interested. However, I think that their federal book of business is going to take a big hit. And so this project may be more interesting to them in 6 months than it was 6 months ago.
Good point.
And I
That's a good
think
point.
if they want to keep people in the firm, not necessarily making a profit, but in the firm, maybe they take a project for $20,000 rather than $40,000 because they're trying to keep afloat. Now they've got a bunch of commercial work. I don't know what's going to happen to the commercial work. They've got a big commercial book of business. They have a big, local, state and federal book of business, but I think most of their work is commercial. I think if I was a commercial entity looking at architecture, I would kind of put those plans on hold till I knew what the market was going to do. So I think Haley Ward and firms like that are going to be scrambling. So I think we suddenly have a much more viable project with money in the bank that we have. So just a couple of thoughts.
I'd like
Thank
to
you.
add
Yeah.
on to that too.
Yes.
To Dean's point, if this project is too small for them, it may explain why their cost to oversee it is similar to the price of the library's quote, because they're trying to raise their bid cost, perhaps because they don't want to work on the project. And if we follow through with Dean's thinking on that, it may be more appealing to them to take on the work later on if they lose some business, but they're not going to lower their price to do it. So there's a little bit of a seesaw effect with their book of business in that model going forward. But I was questioning too, is oftentimes if you don't want to do the work, you put a high price tag on it, is to eliminate yourself from the conversation.
Yeah.
In which case, pursuing more engineering costs from outside Haley Ward might be the best opportunity to find a lower cost going forward.
Can I just say,
Okay.
back in the day when I was doing radio systems, there were like, two-man shops that basically did bids for radio systems for police departments and fire departments and stuff like that. Because that was the size of projects they did. They weren't nationwide, whatever, but they did perfectly competent bid specs and project management and all that kind of stuff for reasonable prices, because that was the scale of work they were, that they were geared up for. I mean, a couple of guys working out of their garage, whatever it was. We've got this huge company bidding on, the mallet to a thumbtack here. But
Yeah,
again,
may have a minimum cost to bid a project just because of the
Yeah.
overhead
Yeah.
of the size of their company.
And I can tell you another thing that crossed my mind, again, you never know, is that they've been getting quite a lot of work from Clinton.
Yeah.
Bigger projects, much bigger projects than the Rauscher Farm one. So I felt that they were doing what you've said, they were going to do it to price themselves out. But they didn't want to say, no, we don't want to bid, because they've got some
Right.
couple of bigger fish.
And
My
I
board
also,
has been turning to them over and over again, I understand.
it's the path of least resistance if you've got a known entity, but at the same time, that comment about going out to bid for vertical projects versus horizontal, I believe the DPW was sending out for bids for paving projects left, right, and center, and that seems to be as horizontal as you can get.
I think
what it-
that was because they, yes, yeah, I'm not comfortable. I want more than one quote. I don't care if you don't have to do it. I will say on our behalf to the Conservation Commission that when we have at least some more sense for the engineers of what these these phasings might cost, that once we have that sense, I will, if this is appropriate for you guys, I will, in our report to the Conservation Commission, say, we were told you don't need them for vertical, but we are not comfortable. We want 3 quotes.
And given how tight the budgets are across the board in all the communities, it's fiscal responsibility. And it's not a small tick. It may be a small ticket in compared to building a new school, but it's not a small ticket item when you're going to the public asking for additional funds potentially to complete the project.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. And, that's what I meant. We are the ones that have to be fiscally responsible. We're the ones that know the project, know where the history is and all the rest of it. And you're right, if we're going to ask for extra funds, we have to show why that the 144 is not enough, because the engineering costs have gone up, and this is the project management cost. So yeah, so you are happy for me now to go back to the Conservation Commission and report all, I mean, I haven't yet, and I won't until closer to their meeting, because I will send them all the stuff I've just sent you, I did send them the proposal, and I did talk to Kimberly because, again, we are answering to the Conservation Commission, and I told her that what I proposed to do at that meeting last night, and she's the chair, so we're not loose cannons here. So we will, but to report into the Conservation Commission in a couple of weeks is I will harness, well, I won't go into the details of, they might be scrambling. I won't do all of that because that's all us being subjective. And I think it's true. I think it's true what Christine is saying. And I think it's true what Dean is saying. They right now, they want to price themselves out of a tiny project, but they don't want to upset Clinton because they got bigger. But I think, Dean, this could all change. But we do want 3 quotes.
I think that plays into a conversation with the phased approach, to have the multiple quotes to be able to see the best possible approach, because I do think that the phased approach is going to get us closer to the finish line by saying, we've got the parking area that benefits Rauscher Farm right off the bat. We've got the pathway that's getting us closer to the pond. And then if at that point we need funding for the platform, I think that's a bigger sell for recruiting donations for that type of a project and getting buy-in for that, if the infrastructure supporting that platform access is already in place.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Well said. Yes, because then you've got 2/3 of it. But the icing on the cake is the experience of nature, which is what that observation deck is. So, okay, is that okay if I report into the Conservation Commission on our behalf that this is what we're trying to do, 3 phases, and we're going to hear back from some engineers on that, because I will again bug Mike Ward, even though as the clock is ticking there. The other reason why I don't think apart from the fact it's just not good to go out and ask for money when you don't know what you're asking for. That's ridiculous. I would laugh us out of the meeting. Right? But then small things like, you read in the item that the FinCom refused to give the select board 14,000 to have a search company to help find a new administrator. I mean, what? And we don't know what we want, but give us 50 grand. I mean, okay, all right. Enough on this. So you are now right up to date with where it all is. Okay. I believe it will happen. I just thought it was going to be a little bit smoother, shall we say. But, so we will go forth. The one thing about us is we are extremely, extremely tenacious. You might call us bloody-minded, but tenacious is probably a nicer, more polite phrase. We are very persistent. We are very tenacious. So, and this is a very important project. And I meant what I said in that last line of my email this morning. I know it is a tiny project, but for people who have limited mobility, it is huge.
Do we know people with limited mobility who would be willing to speak on behalf of this project at appropriate times and places?
That's a good point. We should research that. But remember, limited mobility is not necessarily a permanent state. Limited mobility also means people who have had some sort of surgery. It also means not limited mobility, but, a young person with a very young child in a stroller who, the idea of, trying to push a stroller through some of the trail that borders Clamshell Pond over the roots. No. And in other words, it's universal access, which is the phrase we use now. So but but your point is well taken. We do need to find some support voices or support letters. You know? Anyway, shall I attempt to move on and finish our business for the evening?
Gloria,
Um,
thank you so much for your persistence.
Well, no,
Yes, thank you.
it's all of you guys too, you know. We thrash it out and then we go forth, right? Okay, so talked about blah blah. Okay. Nothing to report on volunteer citizens opportunities because that's basically April the 26th, see what we get. The communication stuff, you know, because you all get sent it, right? You get sent the e-newsletters, you know about Facebook and you click in on it. I'm trying to do Instagram. I need some time on Instagram because I feel that we need to start doing, I have to remember which is reels and which is threads, you know. We need to do some videos, right? That don't disappear in 24 hours, but something, I believe it's
Instagram Reels.
reels. Okay, so yeah, we need, and now that the weather is changing, you know, it's out to make some really tiny, tiny little videos. That's the next learning curve. And I know that Dean knows much more about Instagram than the rest of us all put together, I think.
I never posted on Instagram though. I just know it as a consumer.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so what I'm doing right now, thank you, Christine. Christine always prepares Instagram because, of course, you know, all the ratios are all different, right? So, you know, Christine has to go and do, you know, slides, Instagram, you know, side of the barn, all the rest of it, you know, nothing, they're all different, you know, they're beyond my pay grade. But now this whole pile of stuff goes with every project. So, yeah, so now the thing is to do, even if they're not terrific, some reels on Instagram, and then honestly, seriously, yes, a YouTube channel. I've not given up on that yet.
I really like your visual design, Christine, on the Rauscher farm materials, the stuff on the barn, the handouts. I feel like you've really given us a brand identity from those visuals.
Oh, thank you, Dean.
That's something.
She's
Thank you, Dave.
brilliant. She's brilliant.
Yes, yes.
We wouldn't have got Rauscher Farm if we hadn't had all those campaign materials. I mean, you know, stick insects on the back of an envelope don't really do it.
Thank goodness the town colors are green and gold.
Yeah, that was handy, wasn't it?
Very.
Very handy. So okay, I think, as you can see, I have been obsessing about.
Speaking of which, I see Gloria's wearing the town colors right now.
Oh, yes, I am, aren't I? Yes.
Oh, Gales.
Go Gales, yeah.
I think, okay. So, I just want you to know, I just did a Facebook blast again today for Saturday, because one of the things I learned is that, you know, people tend to make their mind up just a few days ahead of time as well in Clinton. Well, this is the library warned me of this for the winter sow, and the same thing happened. The winter sow was a full registration in the end, and there's 7 slots left out of 20. So there's a sizable thing, and I've communicated with Steve, you know, McGrath. And so it'll be good. You know, you guys, if you want to come in, you are entitled.
I registered quite a while ago, so.
Good for you, because you are, just because
Looking
you do
forward
all
to it.
yeah. And Jim is going to register as well.
Well, I thought you told me you'd registered me, or do I have to register on my own? I don't know.
No, I'm just watching for 24 hours if any response from the
My plan
Facebook
is not to
blast.
register anyway, because that's just a slot. I'll be there anyway, and that's a slot for somebody else. But I mean,
Well,
if I
right,
need
but
to register, I can. So.
But if we're like a couple of people short from full registration, I will register you.
Okay.
Because you are entitled. Right.
Well, I'm gonna be there regardless. I was planning to be there to take pictures or whatever.
I
but
can
I
do
mean,
good PR.
I don't have to have a spot.
Registration.
I don't have a spot sitting at one of the available seats. I can, stand in the back of the room or something.
You can, but if I want to register you and then say it was a full registration for PR reasons, I will. We're not
Right,
talking
but-
about
but-
where you want
but
to
don't-
sit, love.
But don't turn somebody away because I'm on the
No,
list is what I'm saying.
I'm not going to do that, but that's, obviously.
Don't
Yeah.
ask any difficult questions, Jim.
Yes, yes, you do.
Actually, I'm much more comfortable in the back of the room, just, observing. That's my
You can
role in
you can
life.
be there. You can be wherever you want to sit, love.
With
But
a-
if I
with a-
need one
with
more
a-
person
With a
to do
wall
full
behind me, able to
registration,
see what
you're it.
everybody else is doing,
Right. Okay. All right. We'll talk about this over dinner. So I think I've covered the discussion points for next, and we have our homework assignments, and we have our so basically we're back to up and running. And so what will happen in terms of promotion too? The last e-newsletter that went out, had part one. I think it had part one. I can't quite remember. And then underneath there's another visual, whichever one's come. So once I get to the beginning of next week, I will start immediately do first blast of, then, give nature a hand, so that I then have also a reminder for that just before. Okay. So in other words, there'll be 2 e-newsletters that will cover it again just before. And at the same time start to also publicize underneath Give Nature a Hand. The second image will be part 2 of Nature's Imagination, because Christine's done all of those materials. They're all sitting ready to go, which means then, Jim, at the beginning of next week, we take down part 1, we bump up Give Nature a Hand,
Yeah.
but we also put in part 2 because they come very fast.
Whatever, we'll sort it out when all the
Okay.
pieces are there to play with. The other thing before I forget, Alan, is when we go to replace that cable on the DR brush cutter, we need to look up how to adjust the brakes. I did it once before when the machine was brand new. I don't remember how. It's like bicycle brakes. It's not hard to do, but there are instructions in the manual in the barn. But I also have that manual as a PDF on my computer, so I can look it up someplace and we can figure out how to do that while we're at it.
Okay, yeah. So I'll send you an email with a bunch of available times or
Okay,
something
and
like
I'll
that.
match that
How's
against mine and we'll pick a date
Yeah,
and
okay.
time.
And a couple of quick questions for Story Walk, Gloria and Jim, the yellow boards.
Yep.
This year's story is with title and ending panels will be about 26 boards. Just wanted to make sure that you had enough on hand.
We should, because I would never assume I will always count, because we used brand new boards last year,
Okay.
after years of, so
Fighting with
but I will
Velcro.
count. You're good. And I did look at them, and honestly, I couldn't make my mind up between the two that you said. They all look great, So you obviously saw something there that I didn't see, but I will communicate with you offline
Okay.
on my feedback and saying, I don't know what you've done something different, and ask me which one do I like, but I like them both.
All right, we'll catch up.
Okay. All right. Is that it, everyone?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna try to, I have a task hanging out from last season, which was after we did path clearing up at DPF. There was a request to mow through the trail up there to get the remnant vines cut out. So it's been on my list for 6 months. So at some point, I'm going to go up there and just crunch up all those vines that we tried to cut out with the brush cutter.
Are we talking about where that tree came down or?
Yes. Remember how we
got it,
cut that
okay.
path through there
Yeah.
and there was a lot of
Yeah.
vines and
That
I think
does
you
need to
made
be
the
do, yeah,
suggestion too. It'd be good if somebody could run a mower over that and
it does, because we
clean
had,
that up. So that's on my list.
okay, because we had to move that entire path because of that big tree that's down, so that's
Yeah.
is priority now, yeah.
Okay, everyone, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:26.
Motion to adjourn.
Would someone
I'll
like to
second
second?
the motion. I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Be nice.
7:26. Thank you, everyone, for this was
Alan,
an
aye.
excellent conversation, and the projects are all getting underway in one way or another.
Nice work. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So I will now stop recording if I just find my magic button. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay. Why are you not showing me?
I was recording on mine.
I see it in the top right of my screen.
Yeah. Oh, but it should be, I should have a thing here too.
Oh, and also have a button at the bottom.
Yes. And there should be start, captions, breakout rooms. It's disappeared. Oh, there it is. Sorry, it moves across. Okay, sorry. I am now going to stop recording, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll see you on Rauscher.
All right. Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night.